to the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Let's do this thing.
It's just two guys talking sports, and we actually pay them to do it.
You volunteered, didn't you? We're paying you, aren't we?
The first of the duo is an opinionated local sports editor who has made a name for himself thanks to his beard.
That's a serious beard you got going on. I mean, you're heading toward Doug Dynasty, but well-groomed. That's a good look. If I ever did that, that's the look I would go for.
The other guy is a guy who takes no prisoners when it comes to sports.
Let's stomp these dudes.
Together, they bring you the best in Oklahoma State sports talk and opinions on sports from around the country.
That's right. Listen up. Hey, listen up. You.
It's Jason Elmquist.
Today, I'm a mild-mannered reporter for the newspaper.
And Patrick Wheeler.
I'm a very dangerous man.
This is the Afternoon Sports Drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
That's what I'm talking about.
You ain't never heard nothing like this. Let me work, show me where the mic is. I'm on stage, black shirt and my Timbs. You know how I do it, I ain't playing with you, I've been grinding. Anybody trying to sleep on me, better do something with your eyelids. I hear a lot of whining, but I don't hear a lot of rhyming. Whoa. Everybody got opinions, let it go into my ear, then I block that. Put me on stage, I'ma rock that. Saying you the best, stop that, phony, I am not that. Yeah.
Welcome into the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network.
Maybe you should spend a little less time.
Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist with you here on Monday as we begin the week with you. Hope everyone's having a great Monday so far. Thanks for hanging out with us a little bit. Jason, how was the weekend?
Got a little bit of yard work done, so pretty successul.
That's always good. That's definitely a plus. Because I know you said you had you still have probably a lot of yard work left to go, right? With everything going on over there.
Oh yeah, I got last night I was able to weed eat and hit the front yard before I lost all light, but still have the inside the fence I need to hit at some point tonight or tomorrow.
It's gonna happen, but it can't happen tonight because you got a show to watch. You got a movie to watch tonight.
Oh, and not just that. I've actually set to record Eddie because the reason I'm doing the timeline today is my wife's having to prepare for inspections up on campus. So she's been up on campus all day. So I'm actually going to be fixing dinner for her. So
wow.
I've got to record the movie because I'm probably going to be in the middle of fixing dinner when she gets home.
What's for dinner? Like, can I know?
Spaghetti.
Oh, the Jason Elmquist special. Like, is there?
Yeah, I've got option. Like, I've got several things that I can fix, but apparently spaghetti is my forte. That's the one that she's always like, yeah, let's go with spaghetti. Okay.
That's a safe bet. I like it.
Yep.
Wow. Well, hopefully that goes off well. You get a little bit of spaghetti and a little bit of Eddie. Can't get much better than that. That's going to be great. Again, that's tonight at 8:00. The premiere. I know a ton of people are looking forward to that. And on ESPN again, just like Tom said when he got off there with Skip, you want to DVR that if you can. I do believe it's going to be streamable on ESPN afterwards as well. So for anyone that has the channel can stream it. You have a lot of ways to watch it basically until it's off the ESPN app and all that, which I think Jordan just told me 5 months now he thinks is how long it's going to be on there. So plenty of opportunities to watch it when it's live as well. But don't miss tonight.
5 for the Eddie or for the Big Country?
Yeah, he said 5 for the Eddie film.
That's interesting because when we talked to the Chris Hunt and David, they said they had a 3-month contract.
Right, that's what I thought.
So I figured it'd be for 3 months, but I mean maybe it was a 3-month window to get to essentially start the broadcast and the streaming rights and stuff like that. So maybe that's what it was about. But because it was fascinating because I believe it was David who actually made the comment how they're actually trying to they're close to finishing up a contract for the long term place for the film.
That's what you would want to see is like. You look at a bunch of shows that have been on ESPN 30 for 30s and all that, and they're just archived there forever, basically. That would be one of the best circumstances if you could watch it whenever you want. But obviously, if you DVR that, you can do that. I'm not sure how many people really still do the whole DVR thing, but if you do have that ability, make sure to do it so you can keep it. Because, as Thomas said a bunch of times, there's a lot of stuff you might miss the first time you're going to want to go through and watch again because it is apparently a pretty quick moving hour and a half.
Yeah, and as mentioned briefly, we also have the Big Country documentary, hour long. Yeah,
July 1st.
Yep, coming out Wednesday, and then from some former Cowboy basketball players will also be on ESPN Saturday. I haven't heard a time yet.
That's right.
But the Stillwater Stars open up the basketball tournament on Saturday, 4th of July. So three days where ESPN's going to be showcasing the good side of Oklahoma State.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We're gonna have to look and see for times on that, because last I checked, I saw dates but not times. So we'll look.
I checked last night and they still did not have times on their website.
So still trying to get to those. I know they had one team that actually basically opted out and isn't playing anymore, so they probably had to make sure that wasn't going to happen anymore before Saturday. So once we get those times, we'll get them out there, because that will also be on ESPN, available to watch for anybody. A lot of familiar names on that team, obviously, for a lot of people around here. So tons of Oklahoma State representation on the big network coming up this week. We have Ben Fischer coming on with us at 3:25. He is the Sports Business Journal NFL reporter, also reports on the Olympics. It was perfect timing, actually, because I set him up last week for this day. I had no idea that Cam Newton was going to become a Patriot on Sunday night, but it worked out pretty well. We're going to get into that here in a little bit, too. And he was actually the guy that broke that story about the ads taking over rows 1 through 8 early on, and then whenever that dropped last week. And that's going to be interesting to talk about, too, because it's actually evolved a little bit in terms of I know they were able to talk to some executives in the NFL, some teams that basically said, look, we really have no idea what we're going to do with all this, and we have a very short window to announce to fans and everything what's all going to be involved. So their heads are kind of spinning at the moment. We'll get his perspective on all of that as well. I know Jason still remains very interested in his Row 2 tickets that he has to Kansas City. So they're going to see where he ends up going, because that's I'm confident for you, Jason, that you're still going to get to go, obviously. I think you get that too. The question is, exactly where will you be sitting? But at least it's at Arrowhead, and you get a chance to see maybe the banner being raised and all that.
Yeah. But at the same time, that I'm going to be interested with NFL, even though they're getting rid of the first 6 to 8 seats. Are they still going to do limitations like 50%? And if that's the case, I'm assuming there's at least 50% of the tickets sold are season ticket holders. Do they get precedent over the single game tickets, which is what mine is? So that'll be the interesting thing, because it's going to be similar, I believe, here at the college level, is how many, because obviously Iowa State had announced, it seems like 3 months ago now, that basically they're only going to be doing season tickets at 50%. So I'm going to be curious how the NFL handles that as well, because again, so far, that's the one thing I've read. A story over the weekend from the New York Times talking with some parents of college athletes who are concerned that NCAA isn't mandating a universal thing. Well, the NFL seems to be at least maintaining everyone has to do the same thing, but it'll be interesting once the facilities are actually what's being adjusted.
Yeah, I think that might be one of the more interesting parts about college football with fans is, will the families be able to go to, for instance, away games and things like that? Let's say that you can have some fans pretty much everywhere, but will they be getting first dibs? And that's kind of what they talked about with NFL too. They said, how do we divvy that up? And the article I read today was, it's basically maybe the best idea for a lot of people is kind of like a lottery system. That way you can kind of claim, we didn't choose this guy because of this over you, whatever, that type of thing. I still think that's kind of a nightmare situation, because you're not going to make everybody happy, clearly. And I think that's what the NFL teams are trying to come to grips with. College too, is that not everybody that's usually going to be at these games in a regular time won't be necessarily here this season.
I will say this, and I'm saying this to somebody again who has a single game ticket for a Chiefs game. If I were in the NFL or a college AD, I would want my season ticket holders, or especially my long-term ones, to be guaranteed. I would want the people that have been 20, 30, 40-year season ticket holders to automatically get in, even if there is some type of lottery, because in my mind, the optics of it look better if you're saying, okay, at least we're going to say if you've been a season ticket holder for at least 20 years, you're guaranteed, and then everyone else is going to be based off the lottery. I think that's
what I was about to ask.
Yeah,
that's what I was about to ask, was the guys that are, for instance, season ticket holders for now 3 or 4 years. They all of a sudden get that bottom of the totem pole type situation where you get those guys. And I think I agree. I mean, you don't want to make those season ticket holders upset, obviously, especially if they are donors, which a lot of them are.
Right.
That's where you have to kind of balance it out a little bit to me, because you have to make sure that your donors and your boosters that are also season ticket holders find their way in if they want to be in there.
Yeah, because, again, most rational people will understand, okay, those people have been paying a lot more than I have for a lot longer, but at the same time, you're also going to get some people who are flippant and upset about it and saying, well, then obviously you don't want my money. It's like, no, we still want your money, but you haven't been paying as much or as long as these people, so we're recognizing that and then doing, a type of system like that. That, in my mind, if I were in charge, that's how I would approach it. I may even cap it to like if 20 years and beyond. So if you got 19 years, so be it. We appreciate it, but we're going to make sure that those people who have been here longer definitely get guaranteed seating if they want it.
I think it would maybe depend on the number for me. I might flex it and try to go 15 years and beyond, something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Try to include some more people. But that's the thing, is I think that universities also are going to try to find a way to get some form of students in there as well, because college football, we know how dominated it can be by home crowds. I mean, let's just be honest. Yeah. It's probably one of, if not the biggest influenced sport when it comes to home crowds, and a lot of that has to do with the student population.
Well, and that's kind of a unique thing that Oklahoma State's going to approach, because my wife actually works up on campus and made a great point to me over the weekend, because they're trying to figure out what the plans are for this for fall, but you haven't experienced it yet, but homecoming in Stillwater is huge. It is considered, the grandest homecoming event in all the country. And I mean, you'll get, I think they usually estimate almost 100,000 people in town that Friday night just to go through, the lawn decorations, stuff like that. How is the university and the athletic department going to handle that weekend with how big that is? I mean, if this is still an ongoing thing, and in regards to the athletic department, that's the thing is, I bring it up because you talked about students in the stands. Well, traditionally, the student section for homecoming is filled pretty much all with the fraternities and sororities, and they leave at halftime because they're tired from all the pumping for the entire week, right? And after all the announcements of the awards at halftime. So do you maybe do something like that? Do you avoid that? Because if you're because that weekend specifically, are you really going to say, okay, they're allowed in, but we know they're going to leave at halftime, thus kind of destroying the atmosphere that we're wanting, considering half of the stadium's only full?
And also, it's really going to depend on where we are as a state and Stillwater at that time, because you don't want to necessarily say, well, we have everything open, but we're not going to be able to have a large gathering like we may want to, because that's going to be an issue. If you got bars and restaurants still open, and then you say, well, we can't have crowds, people are going to be like, why? So if you do that, there's going to be this major discussion of, hey, look, we can't have elderly folks around this area, which I'm assuming that there are plenty of during homecoming weekend. So that's going to be the problem, is do you take that risk and say, all right, we're still going to do it, it makes a lot of money, and we're going to make sure and put it out there a bunch of times that old people should not be around here, or we're just going to say, we can't do it, everything's going to be open, but we can't do it. To me, it's tough to find any type of win-win in this situation. So I think that if I were to bet on it, I'd say that they would ultimately, it depends on how many fans are allowing in the stands by that time also. But if it comes to a town thing and all that, and everyone else is involved in those decisions, I think that it still goes on as planned, with high recommendations that elderly folks stay home.
Yeah, I think we're still
we're
too far out from knowing,
for sure.
But we also have to keep in mind, within the next month, we're gonna find, within 30 days from basically today, we're going to have a better feeling if how many of these college football programs are actually going to be able to start on time, because they're going to have to start based on the NCAA mandate of 4 weeks of practice before the season starts.
Yeah, the good news is we'll have answers, like I said, in about a month or so, which will be really important at that time to kind of figure out where we might go and what direction with the college football season. When we come back, Ben Fischer is going to join us. We're talking plenty of NFL, as well as the Cam Newton news, which broke last night. We'll ask him his opinions on all that. Still to come here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
I don't wanna wait for our life to be over. You have it, but you take it how you left it. These are give and take. Take your side, take me under. I wanna know, but you show me what I'm missing.
Welcome back to the Afternoon Sports Drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network. It's in 2015-80 AM, 93.1, 105.1 FM, and the Triple Play Sports Radio app. You can listen anywhere on the app. Download that for free if you have not done so already. I'm Patrick Wheeler, Jason Elmquist along with us, and joining us now, Ben Fischer from the Sports Business Journal. He covers the NFL and the Olympics. Ben, first of all, thanks so much for coming on with us. I'm curious as to how busy, even though we've been dealing with the pandemic and everything else, I would think the NFL has kind of kept you a little busy with your writing.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. It's not too crazy, because even during this extraordinary times, the week of the July 4th is always a slow week. We don't publish a magazine a week from today, which means it's a little bit more relaxed than usual, and a lot of the higher-ups in the sports business are still trying to get away for the week, but everyone's still basically working, just because there's so many unknowns, so many questions to be answered before we play football that it's not your usual July 29th or June 29th, that's for sure.
It's absolutely for sure. I said it yesterday, I had no idea that Cam Newton would become a Patriot the night before I had you on the show. It kind of worked out pretty well. What was your initial thoughts of that move? Were you surprised at all?
Well, I shouldn't have been. But, I guess I had kind of forgotten about the Newton storyline, to be honest. I mean, not really. If it came up, obviously, it would have been something to talk about. But just for so long, here's a guy who's been so good fairly recently, and there seemed to be no interest on the free agent market for it. And I just honestly couldn't understand that. So I knew somebody would pick him up eventually. But for the Patriots, I had the reaction that fans of all 31 other teams had. Just roll their eyes. Of course, somehow it all works out for the Patriots. Because, I don't think I'm going out on a limb to say that their season outlook looks much different today than it did 24 hours ago.
Well, I'm going to make you expand on that now. Does that mean that they win the division over there?
I'm going to be cautious just because, as good as I think Cam Newton is, it's been a few years. Nothing's certain in the NFL. I think I'm sort of in the position of I'll believe it when I see it. I think he's got a very, very high ceiling. I think Cam Newton still can be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL, but, he's got to sort of demonstrate that first, which makes the terms of that contract so genius for the Patriots. Because, as usual, how many times have they done this with somebody who's sort of a high-risk, high-reward veteran, and they find a way to structure the terms so if he busts and he's not really improved or he's not quite healthy again, then no harm done to the Patriots. So, but he can be very, very good, and I think that a scenario in which the Patriots are right back at the top of the division and another Super Bowl contender suddenly seems plausible. I didn't think that was possible with their quarterback situation before yesterday. On the other hand, they got to earn it. The Bills and Josh Allen are, clearly not the pushovers they used to be. I think the Dolphins have some reason to be optimistic, and Newton's not a sure bet. So I still consider that a highly competitive division in ways it hasn't been for most of the last 2 decades. But clearly, Patriots can be a lot more optimistic than they were yesterday, for sure.
Well, and obviously, in another genius PR move from Bill Belichick, the news comes about the same time we hear about the penalties being levied against them, and obviously that kind of gets swept to the side because of Cam Newton. But talk about the penalties. I know a lot of people have brought up the fact that they feel like it's almost just a slap on the wrist for a franchise that continues to kind of show a repeated history of violating stuff like this.
Right. In a vacuum, those are a pretty substantial punishment. Lose a draft pick, $1 million fine to the team. A fine to the team, I never quite understood that. But that's, not nothing. And losing a draft pick, is a sign that the league takes it seriously. On the other hand, it's not a vacuum. There's a track record there. And when you take into the fact that this is multiple offenses, it's hard not to feel like there should have been more. But then again, we still haven't gotten a total breakdown on exactly what the findings and facts were, I don't believe. And there could be something mitigating about the circumstances that prevented them from really throwing the book at them. But objectively, again, it's not nothing. It was a draft pick. You did do something wrong.
Ben Fischer joining us here on the afternoon sports drive. You broke the news about the NFL covering some of their seats there at the bottom levels. Were you surprised, I guess, first of all, to see that with Oakland Raiders, I guess now they're Las Vegas Raiders, Mark Davis was the lone opponent against that idea?
Yeah, I was surprised to see that after the fact. That wasn't my reporting, that there was only one no on that, because as I was reporting that out and realizing that it was going to come to pass on Thursday at the owners' meeting, interestingly enough, before I published that, all of my sources were telling me, totally done deal, owners are 100% on board. And then I published it, and I think some teams started to hear from their season ticket holders, and suddenly I was hearing that there was a bit of a pushback from the ownership and it might not pass. So honestly, it wouldn't have shocked me to hear it was something like 24-8, and it just barely passed to get things done. So it was a little surprising to hear that only one owner actually voted against it, because I know that several teams have grave concerns about tarping those seats off.
Do you think it's a solid idea, at least from a business standpoint? Because that's kind of what I've been this whole time. Is I think it makes some sense from a business standpoint in terms of obviously trying to make back some of the money that they're going to make with or lose with fans not being able to come in. So does that part actually work for you?
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, one of the most important things high-level strategists in any business do is risk mitigation, trying to take, the best of a bad situation. And if you believe that there's no chance or only a remote chance that you're going to have large crowds at games this year, then you turn to the next best thing. What can we do to make money off that real estate? And giving on-TV camera visible signage to your local partners who were, by league policy, never allowed to have that before is a pretty nice little way of, minimizing the losses if you're not going to be able to have fans in there. But, it's hard to say because every city is dealing with the pandemic in such a different way. Most of the people I talked to that were most enthusiastic about this were in cities where there's little to no chance of having full crowds at the stadiums. The ones that didn't like it were the ones that still think, hey, there's a chance of us still selling those seats in basically every seat in our stadium. I think with every passing day, that version of the fall seems less and less plausible. And once you come to terms with the fact that you're going to have at best 30 to 50% of your normal capacity, you may as well make some money with those empty seats. So I don't really see much of a problem with it. But I can understand why somebody would if they thought they were still going to have a full stadium.
How difficult is it for the NFL right now? Because as you kind of pointed out, everyone thinks about, we're the United States, we're one country, but every area is being affected differently. How difficult has it been for the NFL to try to have a joint response to this, but also realizing that some states and where their football programs are at are actually being kind of affected differently?
It's extraordinarily challenging because if there's some owners care about advertising, some owners care about tickets, and some owners care about, their hedge funds. But every owner cares about competitive equality. And every owner starts paying attention if they feel like there's something about the season that's going to put them on a competitive disadvantage. So equity has been a major theme that every team has to be under the same conditions. Last week, though, there was some reporting, including from me, that the league is not going to set a base standard for the league-wide attendance, and that it's basically whatever your local authorities can allow. It's shocking to me that the NFL appears to be prepared to accept a scenario in which Dallas might be able to have 50,000 fans, and the New York Giants might be only having 10 or none. That is at odds with how the NFL has viewed sort of competitive equity and making sure everyone competes on a level playing field for a long, long time. But on the other hand, you would create problems if you instituted a league-wide standard. If you said we're only going to have 10,000 people because that's the smallest crowd that any team's going to have, and we want everyone to be on the same page, then you raise possible problems for yourself with like personal seat licenses. Because if the government says you can have 50,000 people in and you only put 10,000 in, then you might have a lawsuit on your hands from somebody who said, hey, I bought the rights to every game, and now you're making it so I can only get one or two. So there's a lot of ups and downsides to whatever scenario it is. And while it's surprising to me that the NFL appears prepared to not have a level playing field in terms of crowd noise and home field advantage, it might be the best of the bad situation. And every day that passes during the pandemic, there's more and more of that, hey, it's not going to be business as usual. You're going to have to accept something less than ideal this year. So,
Ben Fischer.
All those ups and downs are going to continue to be argued about, debated over the next couple of months. It's hard to say where everything's going to come out.
Ben Fischer joining us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive from the Sports Business Journal. With, for instance, we're in Stillwater here at Oklahoma State, and how much do you think, how prevalent will it become for NFL teams to kind of keep an eye on how college teams address fans in the stands, and to kind of see how it works out if that does become a reality this season?
I think the NFL is hoping that they don't have to make any hard decisions, and they can make everybody else make the hard decisions first, whether that be Major League Baseball or just the English Premier League or even college football. Everyone is sort of hoping somebody else makes a decision and figures things out first. Having said that, I don't know how transferable the college questions are to the pro question, because the NFL, at the end of the day, is just 32 businesses. They act in concert. Yep. They've got a commissioner who's very empowered to make a singular decision, whereas colleges, at almost literally every university, there's a different set of decision makers and possible political or financial factors that determine where a campus comes down on capacity at a stadium. So I think every university is going to make its own decisions, but how much that comes to bear on what the NFL decides, I wouldn't make too much of that.
Now, connecting NFL and college, obviously, especially when we're at Oklahoma State, we're seeing, scouts at all the home games, stuff like that. Have you heard, or do you think that there's going to be a change from NFL when it comes to sending scouts if there's uncertainty during this pandemic?
That's a good question. I have not heard that discussed specifically, that exact issue, but safe to say there's going to be an operating goal across the NFL to minimize travel whenever possible. And even the schedule is designed to minimize travel. Like a lot of the Eastern teams are playing back-to-back on the West Coast. They don't make two trips across. I know that, teams in general seem to have less travel, and they put more thought into that. So, I doubt they would totally ban scouting trips, but they're going to find ways to try to minimize that and do more by, video and other remote technologies. So
Ben Fischer,
I don't know, but if it's like everything else, I would expect less of that to go on for sure.
Do you expect the NFL to keep dominating sports even with the pandemic going on? I mean, with ratings and everything else, and that maybe you kind of hit on it there, but just based off sheer timing, I mean, they got the luck of the draw when it came to the pandemic, and lucky now with how long it's going to take before they get back up. But do you expect them to just keep dominating?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't see any scenario in which the NFL doesn't come out of this at least relatively as strong compared to other sports and entertainment options, relatively as strong as ever, probably even stronger, because it's easy to forget that, during all of this, baseball and basketball and hockey and MLS have all had this, we are trying to figure this out while we are losing money every day because we're not playing games we otherwise would have played. As complicated and frustrating as the NFL situation it faces is, the fact is they haven't actually lost any games or any TV rights yet. So it's just in a position where they've got so much less stress, and they can buy time. As late as it is in the summer, they still can buy us a few weeks, and that's going to accrue to their benefit. And then, the NFL is just in such a strong spot because a higher percentage of their money comes from TV rights. As long as they play the game, NFL teams will be fine. Whereas baseball and basketball and hockey teams and soccer teams, they need butts and seats. So better than not playing, but football will be fine even if there are no fans in the stadium this year. So it's more of a luxury to be talking about that than, making or breaking the whole organization.
Ben Fischer joining us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive from the Sports Business Journal. Did you like how the NFL draft went down this year in its virtual state?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. It was, in hindsight, it was ridiculous that some people were saying it shouldn't happen. I think we all agreed that, in hindsight at least, that business, if you can do a draft and meet people's basic expectations, then why not do it? I think it was all very interesting to see people's homes and the differences between Cliff Kingsbury and Bill Belichick's draft arrangements. And, we kind of got there was certain things about it that were better than regular drafts. I definitely watched more of the draft than I usually do just because of the curiosity factor to see how well it went. And, all things being equal, they'd rather have 600,000 people in downtown Vegas or something. But, considering what they had to work with, I thought that was a grand slam. It was one of the better things the NFL has done in a long time.
In your story that you published today, you noted that one NFL exec basically labeled the ticketing issue to DEFCON 1. In your best opinion, what will ultimately come for fans this year when it comes to buying tickets if they haven't done so already, as well as will there be some fans that get a better chance at seats than others?
Yeah, I'd say that right now, first thing you should do if you hold NFL tickets for this fall, or if you intend to buy NFL tickets this fall, is to lower your expectations. They might find a way to get you in, but it's going to be way less than 100% capacity. You should come into it with a spirit of patience and understanding the team is almost certainly trying very hard to not screw you. And if you feel screwed, then it may be impossible to avoid that. And that's what my story today was about, was that in almost every NFL city, the number of people they'll be legally allowed to put in that stadium will be less than the number of tickets already sold. And that's a big problem. And, legally, I don't want to overstate the aspect of litigation here, because most tickets to most sporting events are what you call a revocable license. But as long as they give you your money back, they're free to take your ticket back at any time. That doesn't mean they're not going to upset a lot of very loyal customers. So how the teams figure out, well, if only 1 out of every 6 people with a season tickets allowed into the games this year, who we're going to let into which games, that is a very, very challenging business question, and the leagues are only beginning to talk about it. So my advice to the ticket holder now is, if it's a single game seat, I wouldn't buy yet. Give yourself 6 weeks to try to figure out what the situation is going to be. If you've already holding season tickets or club seats, just try to be patient and assume you're not going to get in. And then if you do, then you'll be happy.
I just have to say, asking fans for patience is asking a lot of fans.
Yeah, it is, because people are just so used to it. There's some.
Yep.
I've talked to people who responded to the tarp story last week with, I've had tickets in the 7th row for 15 years. What do you mean they're going to put a tarp over my seat this year?
Right.
I get it, but, they're going to be happy to play the games and cash the TV rights check. Everything that comes after that is really secondary, and they don't want to upset you, but they're also not going to violate the law in terms of capacity either. So, for what it's worth, most of the team people I talk to say that their season ticket holders have been pretty patient, and that they're not getting too much angry incoming yet about how it goes. But then again, it hasn't been tested yet. They haven't really had to come down to, come to Jesus talk and saying, well, you're not going to get the big matchup with the Steelers, but you are going to get the matchup with the Browns or whatever, and how all that shakes out. So everyone's playing well with each other for now, but check in a month to see how much fun ticket managers are having, breaking the hard news to their loyal customers.
Couple more questions here before we let you go. The first one is, people have been freaking out over, and so much so that the Players Association kind of calling out Tom Brady, even though for him continuing to kind of practice disregarding what the NFLPA put out about kind of social distancing and guidelines and all that during everything going on here. Do you think that the hate is warranted for Tom Brady at this point, even though since he continues to work out with all of his teammates during all this?
Boy, that's tough. I mean, as usual with social media, it's not that there's necessarily a bad point there, but maybe everyone could just dial their outrage back to 10%, and that would be a lot better for everybody. I mean, I get their point. The NFL is at least in the Park Avenue headquarters. I don't know how much the Players Association. I think the Players Association cares about this too, but the NFL takes very seriously its example-setting role in society. That, the NFL in some ways is the only thing left that both Democrats and Republicans listen to and respect. Now, the polling isn't exactly right on that, but the NFL is aware of the fact that it can move social behavior by the way it self-acts, and they want to set a good example. So to have, the world's best quarterback openly flaunting this advice against group practices right now is pretty frustrating for a lot of different people. On the other hand, these are adults. They've got medical advice around them. The actual risk of that is probably fairly low. Mm-hmm. But it also goes back to the original threat to the season. I think we're to the point now with these pro sports teams, as like the NBA players are coming back to their training camps, where it's not a big problem if a couple of guys on the team test positive, but it's so easy the way this disease is so contagious. It's one thing to have 3 guys in their team come down with it, but if you have 15 or 20, like some of the Clemson football team numbers were, then you're talking forfeit. Then you're talking a major problem. So behavior that might, make it easier for it to go from 1 or 2 positive cases to 15 cases is going to be a real problem for teams. And I get why people don't like Tom Brady doing that right now. But like I said, what the actual risk is hard to say. So I'm sorry I can't give you a stronger answer on that, but I really do see both sides of it.
No, I think that was a good one, actually. It's easy to see both sides. Final question here for you, pretty straightforward. Who's your Super Bowl champion this year? I know I'm asking you at the end of June here, but I got to know.
Ooh. Well, you're the first person to ask me that question. I got to say, you've got a young quarterback and a team that's bringing back the same studs. Kansas City. I mean, hard to argue with that. I think they look tough. I don't know who. If Cam is absolutely everything he used to be in New England, maybe them. I like to think the team of my childhood, the Steelers, maybe have one more run in it once Roethlisberger's arm is intact. But I still see the Chiefs as the team to beat.
I've got to ask you, actually, before you go, since you said you're a Steelers fan, since we're an Oklahoma State radio station, what's been your feeling on the progression of Mason Rudolph there in Pittsburgh?
We'd like to see him be a little bit better than he's been, but I think I basically agree with the team assessment that, we're reasonably confident in our quarterback situation right now. I think, look, if Rudolph hadn't have gotten re-injured in that Jets game last year, they win that game and they make the playoffs, and that probably wouldn't have gone real well. But I think last year when Roethlisberger went down and we saw what Rudolph could do, there was some reason to believe that, he's maybe coming around. And I'm not saying he's ever going to be in Canton, but I think he's a reasonably competent backup at this point.
That's definitely acceptable, I think, with everything that's gone on in the NFL with him. That's Ben Fischer. Follow him on Twitter at Ben Fischer SBJ from the Sports Business Journal. Ben, thanks so much for taking some time out and spending it here with us.
Sure thing, anytime.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Ben Fischer of Sports Business Journal. Definitely give him a follow. He is a must follow on Twitter when it comes to all that's kind of the unique part of the Sports Business Journal, is they focus more on just the X's and O's. In the NFL and stuff. They give you news like, for instance, the breaking news on the Tarps covering the stands this upcoming season, and the business side of football, which is, as we all know, a huge side. So definitely big thanks to him for coming on. When we come back, we will look at Oklahoma State announcing their official newest numbers regarding players testing positive for the coronavirus and much more. Also, betting odds are out for who's going to win the Big 12 this season in football. We'll talk about all that. Also, by the way, in case you didn't hear from our last interview there with Ben, Cam Newton is a Patriot. We'll discuss that all still to come on the afternoon Sports Drive.
It's Sports Talk.
It's been a too long time with no peace of mind. I'm ready for the times to get better. I've got to tell you, I've been racking my brain, hoping to find a way out. I've had enough of this continual rain.
Wrapping up hour number 1 here on the afternoon sports drive on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist here with you on Monday. Oklahoma State officially putting out their latest numbers regarding football players that have tested positive for the coronavirus, and right now it is sitting at 14 out of 110 players tested. And according to those numbers as well, in that data, only one player remains an active case in quarantine. I think the good news from this, Jason, is that those that have tested positive for the most part have, from what we're hearing there, basically recovered on the timetable that most people would assume they have too. And, I mean, 14 out of 110, that's what, 12%? So you're going to get, like, this isn't a huge surprise, I think, to a lot of people. And the number will probably continue to rise, to be honest, before it's all said and done. But I will say this again, that Oklahoma State, in the back of their mind, are not, obviously don't want to see any positive cases, but at least the ones that are here now positive and recovered are thrilled that many are through this process. When you look at, compared to, this happening in week 3 or 4 of the season, but 14 out of 110.
Yeah, but I also read a medical study today that also makes me concerned for not just these Oklahoma State athletes, but athletes as a whole, because apparently they're finding out that even asymptomatic people who have come down with COVID have actually have had troubles or have had deterioration to their lungs. And the only way they've been able to spot it is either from an autopsy from those who's passed away or a CAT scan. And a lot of these colleges aren't going to be able to afford to have all these people scanned, CAT scanned, to see if there's any lung damage. So, we talk about how great conditioned these athletes are. If any of these guys have some lung deterioration because they've come down with COVID-19, even as asymptomatic, that's a cause for concern for me.
Yeah, and I think, they're probably told by the trainers and the athletic staff there that, hey, look, it's going to be basically kind of the same thing. You take risk in terms of concussions and injury when you go out and play. Well, it's possible that, like you just said, you might have some issues with the lungs. We just don't know. But it's possible. So you going out there, you're going to have to put that into your pile of risks that you're taking by jumping on this football field.
Well, and not just as a risk, but the conditioning that they go through.
Right.
Some of these guys that we're used to seeing play an entire game on defense or whatever, maybe they're now going to have to be limited. Amin Ogbongbemiga, he played, I think, pretty much every single snap last year, unless he got dinged up or something. Since even though he's asymptomatic, were his lungs not affected at all, to where he's still going to be able to have that stamina that he was able to showcase throughout last year. Those are things, because again, I don't know, this medical study didn't say anything about just doing normal lung testing to tell capacity and stuff like that. But from CAT scans, you can actually see like a blurring of the lungs, which means that there's abnormalities. That stuff's hard for them to pick up just from somebody blowing into a tube or something like that. So that's going to be my biggest concern for these athletes, is they're so used to, hey, I can push it myself to this far. Well, if there's lung conditions that they don't realize from the COVID cases, do they try to push it too far and something worse happens?
Yeah, they've got the list of everyone that tested positive, and you have to know that during this season and practices leading up, they're keeping an extra careful eye on those guys for any.
You would hope so.
Well, you would hope so for any possible signs of he's not normal, and this could be a real reason. Right. A lot of data coming out this weekend with the coronavirus. Also important to note that the CDC released latest data saying that it looks like to them it's definitely possible that there have been over 20 million cases already in the United States. And that's how many people, a lot of people, obviously may have had it at some point a long time ago and never knew. And then that's kind of what's interesting, is that we're hearing a lot of stories from people say, hey, look, I had some of these symptoms, or I had a 1-day, 2-day little cold thing going on that wasn't a cold, and it's like, wow, I really do wonder. So it's interesting. This thing is changing every single day.
Yeah.
And I saw an interesting story as well too. We talked about how many have been infected on Clemson's team, And all of a sudden, who knows, they may be forming some sort of herd immunity before it's all said and done with the number that tested positive on their team alone.
And that's actually another study I saw over the weekend is actually the antibodies that, we've talked about. Gundy obviously was one of the big ones talking about in April. Is a latest study say asymptomatic people actually do not carry the antibodies more than a couple of weeks, which then makes them susceptible to getting it again. So, I mean, as every week passes, we're finding out more stuff about this virus that, again, I'm on the same side as, hey, we need to try to start getting back to normal, and we got to sustain the economy and stuff like that. But we also, the more we're finding out about this virus, obviously you remember about a month and a half back where there was the scare of little kids coming down with some weird disease from after getting the COVID. I mean, there's just so many things to this that we're learning as every week passes by that, you just wonders, like, man, is a vaccine going to be enough? Are we going to have to find a vaccine for something that's coming from the COVID-19 that we don't know is happening right now already?
Yeah, it's extremely fluid situation still. Yeah. We're sitting here at the end of June, and it definitely is ever changing as teams do understand that a vaccine isn't probably not coming anytime soon, and can they adapt without it? And hopefully for everyone they can, including themselves. When we come back, sitting there last night, looked down at my phone. Next thing I know, Cam Newton is no longer a Panther. He did what I said he would do back in April. I don't know if you remember talking about that, Jason. I put out the prediction. It was a crazy hot take at the time. Oh, Cam Newton's going to be a Patriot. Well, it turned out he did just that. We'll talk about it. The move is good, what it means for the AFC, what it means for the NFL. That's next. And now we're number 2 on the afternoon sports drive.
Now I hit the scene, they like lights, camera, action. Living in a dream, now my music, they be blasting. Step out, I'm a star, always in the latest fashion. Had to set the bar, try to catch me lacking. Bank account for my son, he won't have to struggle. You can see it in my...
Welcome to hour number 2 of the afternoon sports drive, Triple Play Sports Radio Network, 1580 AM, 1020 AM, 93.1 FM, 105.1 FM, and the Triple Play Sports Radio app. Phone lines are open, 533-1051, 533-1020. Cam Newton has officially found an NFL team. He was sitting on the free agency list for too long, and I really, truly believe that the Patriots knew for a long time that they were going to go after him. I don't think this was some, last week decision, couple nights ago decision. As soon as he was no longer a Carolina Panther, that Bill Belichick, being Bill Belichick, who had already expressed plenty of positives regarding Cam Newton, loves the guy, loves how he plays, would try to go after him. Which is like Ben said earlier, leave it to the Patriots to sign this guy, Cam Newton, for basically nothing. Up to $7 million is all he will end up making. A bunch of incentives put into this contract. That's what they do so well. I'm going to read you, Jason, a few quarterback deals this offseason that were more than his, okay? Ryan Tannehill, 4 years, $118 million. Teddy Bridgewater, his replacement, by the way, 3 years, $63 million. Tom Brady, 2 years, $59 million, that's the max. Drew Brees, 2 years, $50 million. Nick Foles, 3 years, $24 million. Phillip Rivers signed for 1 year with Indianapolis for $25 million. Taysom Hill, a backup, you can't even call him a quarterback, utility player for the Saints, signs 2 years, $21 million. Andy Dalton gets 1 year, $7 million. Jameis Winston, 1 year, $4.9 million. And then Cam with the 7.5. I mean, so that tells you right there. To me, he wants to play football no matter the cost. This is his, last chance season, really? I mean, to show everybody what he has, because I don't know about you, but if he has a good season in New England, we could be looking at a guy that signs a 4 or 5 year deal after this year.
I think the most ridiculous thing I saw from it was the fact that Chase Daniel is being paid more than Jameis Winston and Cam Newton combined.
Wow. Chase Daniel has been the guy who has literally done nothing in the NFL and made a lot of money from it. Like, he has been, just stood on the sideline and been a very rich man because of it.
I looked it up when I saw that tweet because I quote tweeted with this. He's actually making more money as a backup than Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson, and Lamar Jackson, who are all still on their rookie contracts.
Amazing.
That is absurd.
He's sitting there
that he
smiling.
is being paid more. Yeah, he's the backup to Matthew Stafford.
I love it. I think Chase Daniel has done the best finesse job of any backup quarterback in the NFL when it comes to grabbing some money. Insurance is very important even in the NFL.
The best response has been the amount of people saying, "Man, I want that guy as my agent." That's the big thing. It's not kidding. It's not Chase Daniel. It's the agent. But it also shows how idiotic that some of these franchises are as well. That you could pay a lot less for a backup quarterback. I mean, heck, just look at the Chiefs. They pulled off Matt Moore off of a high school football team to win a game for them. So
Matt Moore literally scouted Kyler Murray the year of becoming a quarterback again for the Chiefs.
Yeah, and going on to win a Super Bowl as a backup. Yeah, no, it's crazy to think that the old booger eater from Missouri is making that much money in the NFL.
Hey, now, Chase Daniel did a lot more than eat boogers when he was at Missouri, okay? He was fantastic.
Hey, that is all I know him as. He is the booger eater. I even clipped that video and included it in my tweet about the fact that he's being paid more than Mahomes, Watson, and Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, I'm glad that is what he would stand out to you as, for the Kansas fan. But
he is the booger eater.
You have to admit that Mizzou team they were tough. That was last year. They were really, really good. I mean, honestly, when they had Jeremy Maclin and TJ Moe and everyone else, man, they were good.
If only they had a real quarterback who was busy, more worried about throwing the ball than throwing boogers into his mouth.
Yeah, well, we all have our issues, don't we?
and that's the thing. I can call him that because there's actually video evidence.
I know you can. That's why I'm not saying that you can't because it's out there.
I'm just saying, for those who might be thinking I'm just
some
being harsh
nickname,
because of the KU guys. Yeah. Like no. He actually on ESPN. There's a video. You can literally search it on YouTube. I found the video on YouTube. Just Chase Daniel Booger, and you can find it. So.
Jason said here and came up with the only thing he could think of on the spot was Booger Eater to call Chase Daniel. That's all it was.
Oh no, it's not on the spot. I've been calling him that for years.
Oh, it's out there. YouTube is an unfortunate spot for some people, but it is out there.
Oh yeah. Back to Cam Newton though. We've seen it with other positions. I think back to Tyrann Mathieu. His 1 year contract with the Texans. Obviously, that rolled into a lucrative championship worthy contract with the Chiefs. Emmanuel Ogbah, 1 year. He didn't have a contract, but he had success with the Chiefs, and that turned into a good contract for him this offseason. So, I think if he goes in there, and I found it funny, actually Harold Kuntz pointed out the fact that whoever first, I don't know if it was Adam Schefter or one of the NFL network beat writers said that, he'll have a chance. And I'm like, Harold's like, a chance at what? Like, do we really think Stidham is going to beat out Cam Newton? even if Cam isn't as electric or as good as he was in the past, he's still going to be better than Stidham, is he not?
Yeah, I don't need anybody to come out on here and think that Jarrett Stidham is really going to have a shot to beat Cam Newton. I mean, as soon as he saw the news or was probably told it preemptively, he knew that he was going to be a backup. And that's the thing that I've been preaching this whole time was, it's just not going to be Jarrett Stidham. Like, look who the head coach is. The Patriots are trying to make a statement this year with no Tom Brady. And what better way to do that than fill him with the antithesis of Tom Brady, okay? And that's Cam Newton, because he does a lot of things that Tom Brady never could, and will admit it. Because Tom Brady is a pure thrower, always has been. Cam, I still truly believe, based on the workouts he's been posting on social media, he looks like he's in incredible shape. If the injury bug does not bite him this year, I'm not saying he's going to run for 500 yards like he did in the past, but just the addition of Cam Newton all of a sudden makes the Patriots a real threat in a year that looked like they may not be.
And I'll say this: obviously, everyone thinks about his mobility being totally different from Brady, but in my mind, he's got a stronger arm than Brady, especially right now. I'm more impressed with the throwing arm of Cam Newton than I am Tom Brady. Tom Brady is really good at reading and getting the ball to the right player. That's what makes him a great quarterback. It's not necessarily that he can throw a 40 or 50-yard bomb like I think a Cam Newton can. So I'm going to be interested to see if you see more of New England airing the ball out instead of this dink and dunk to your running backs like they have with Brady for the past 2-3 years. So that's what I'm going to be interested to see is how him coming in maybe evolves that offense with McDaniel if he is able to elevate this into a the offenses that you see now where they're more pass happy and are able to drive that because again we've seen that rookie wide receiver that everyone was hyping up. A lot of people think he's going to be a great wide receiver. Now you get someone who maybe who can chuck it to him deep a little bit more consistently than Tom Brady has in the past.
Yeah, see, that was my question, though, that I had a long time ago when I talked about Cam Newton was how exactly would the receivers that he would have at his disposal gel? Julian Edelman, obviously, Mohamed Sanu, Marquise Lee, and N'Keal Harry, who showed flashes of what could be last year.
Yeah.
An aging Julian Edelman, but still has the chance to be a stud in the slot.
I think the big thing, and I don't remember what their drafts looked like, I think the biggest thing, though, is going to be tight end. And obviously that was what was important for Tom Brady. I think you saw without a talent like Rob Gronkowski or any presence at tight end, the struggles that he had last year and that offense had. But you go back to Cam Newton's time in Carolina. He had one of the all-time great tight ends in Greg Olsen for many years. And they fed off each other. I think that's going to be my biggest thing for New England. I think Cam Newton – if they are, we were talking about bets and whatnot for Big 12, which we'll get to, but I saw the latest odds with Cam Newton. They now have them with the third best odds of winning the AFC.
Yeah, that's how far they jumped, up to number 3.
Right, behind the Chiefs and the Ravens. But I think to be that much of a contender, they're going to have some type of tight end presence to help Cam, I think, in my mind.
I said, and then this was the updated odds, obviously, like you just said, to win the AFC. They're sitting at 750, plus 750 right now. I said that's third best. So they had a huge jump. And I said a long time ago, back when we first started the show, when I was on here, that I still believed the Patriots were going to win the AFC East, just because I still believed in Bill Belichick. Now, part of me also believed that Jarrett Stidham wouldn't necessarily be the quarterback before it was all said and done. But to you, does this maybe not lock it up, but is it all of a sudden not as wide open of a conference as it was 2 days ago?
Yeah, and I think maybe that's why they made the play for Cam Newton, is because they realize that if they can get just some type of steady veteran quarterback in there, again, even if Cam Newton isn't the MVP caliber quarterback, in my mind, even if he's 75% of the Cam Newton that we know as a MVP type guy, I still think that instantly makes them a contender in that division because it is so bad. Because that's the thing we got to keep in mind. Josh Allen, he's okay, but let's be honest, the Bills made it to the playoffs on their defense.
Oh yeah. We all know that.
If we brought in Jordan Bishop right now, he would 100% agree with that. Obviously, they got a boost at wide receiver in that trade that they landed the Minnesota wide receiver, but Josh Allen still needs to throw the ball within 20 yards of guys for them to be able to catch it.
Stephon Diggs is too good to have too many short balls. So that's the thing is Buffalo, Miami, and the Jets are all of a sudden like, oh crap, because I really think two days ago it was anybody's conference. But I'm buying in. I love Cam Newton. I've supported him since Auburn when he had that probably one of the best, if not the best year a quarterback has ever had in college football. And coming into the league, kind of taking it by storm, MVP, Super Bowl, not winning, but getting there. I really believe he still has what it takes. And to me, too, like I said at the beginning of the segment, this is going to define his NFL future because he's sitting at 31 years old. We know what happens to quarterbacks around this age, at least for most, okay? So that's going to be the thing, is with the time off, is he going to be able to play a 16-game season injury-free? That's going to be the biggest issue. Because then all of a sudden, if he doesn't, and he gets you into a good spot but then gets hurt, then it is all of a sudden Jared Stidham time or Brian Hoyer time. And then what happens with the Patriots? I think that the value, again, this also illustrates the value of a good quarterback. I mean, it really does. Look what happens one day into this, and it elevates them into such a more prevalent position when it comes to possibly even we got Super Bowl odds all of a sudden on these guys. Now again, they are in the AFC and we know who they have to go through, but still, this is for the Chiefs, for instance, when they have the Patriots on the schedule, it's all of a sudden not just a wash game anymore.
Yeah, because I'll say this: if you put Cam on any of those division teams, Jets, Dolphins, Bills as well, I same thing. I would consider them a contender. I would honestly, if the Bills would have signed him, I would have thought they actually have a better chance than with Josh Allen. So again, I don't know what to expect from Newton, but I still think a 75% of what he's been in the past is still better than really all the quarterbacks in that division right now.
Oh yeah, he jumps to the top of that list in that division. I mean, even with being out for as long as he has been. And that, we talk about, too, there's going to be running backs on that team that can help him out and catch the ball, but I think this is all of a sudden going to be, Cam Newton's team. So, yeah, let's go ahead and not get it twisted with the talk of, well, it's going to be a quarterback battle in the offseason. No. Yeah. We all know Cam Newton is going to be the guy in New England.
Oh, and I just have to say, because you kind of twisted it into what I kind of said when we had Ben on earlier. Ultimately, we know that this has been in the works for a while. I think ultimately it was a PR move. It was we'll announce it when we get these penalties, because no one's talking about the penalties. No one's talking about the penalties. They're all talking about Cam Newton.
How funny was that? Because you get the update and it says Cam Newton is now a Patriot, and it was like, 15, 20 minutes later? Oh, by the way, the NFL's officially penalized the Patriots for spying on the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah, and I've seen more about Cam Newton than the actual penalties.
This was
100%
genius.
a PR move.
Yeah, absolutely genious. It got swept under the rug.
It's like, hey, we knew 2-3 weeks ago we're going to sign you, but just let us wait until we're going to get our penalty and you become the story.
That's why you got to give – I know there's people that hate the Patriots with everything they have, but you got to give them credit for things like this. They do so well at coming off as a lot better in the situations than they probably should have. And that's the thing here, too, that you brought that up. When you kind of mentioned it to Ben, and I think I agree with you, that it's a little bit of a slap on the wrist. I mean, $1 million fine – and they lose a third-round pick. I heard somebody talking today on another show saying, you know what? What if this actually works out, too? Because if Cam Newton doesn't pan out, you're telling me they couldn't get a third-round pick for Cam Newton before it's all said and done? I'm like, hey, you know what? Yeah. They could definitely fill things back up. That is for sure. So, and then that's the beauty of this sign, is that Cam is either going to go off and get the Patriots back to where they're used to being, or he doesn't have a great season. The Patriots go, well, we did everything we could, and they go into the draft and get somebody else.
Oh, and that's the thing is, if he comes in here, plays really good, and doesn't re-sign with them, they get a compensatory pick as well.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's brilliant. I mean, it really is a win-win situation for them. Of, hey, we're bringing in a former MVP on the cheap. If he does well, we have a successful season this year. If he leaves, we're going to get a draft pick to make up for that. Because that's the thing is, if he plays well enough this year and ultimately signs somewhere else in the offseason, they're going to make up that third-round pick easily.
Oh, no doubt.
That they're losing.
No doubt. Yeah. And I truly believe that this was, I still will stand on this, that this was more of a couple months ago decision. I really think that was in the work. If not for sure, a pretty 90% we're going to pull the trigger on Cam Newton here in New England. It was just like Jared Stidham, just like you want to give the guy a chance, but at the same time you're like, it's New England. They don't give guys chances all the time. They go for it. We've seen them sign big names before. I mean, look what they did last year with Antonio Brown. They gave him a shot. It ultimately didn't work out, but they gave him a shot. Same way here with Cam Newton. So I think that it's definitely, I'm rooting for him. I hope Cam Newton dominates. I know I'm saying that in the AFC, but I really hope he does have a great season. Of course, I hope the Chiefs take care of him, though, too. That's going to be a really fascinating matchup. Cam Newton versus Patrick Mahomes. I can't wait to see that, especially if Cam's rolling by that time. Whew. That could be a serious shootout for all we know. And then that game, or it could be a defensive battle, too, with the defenses that are on those teams. So
Yeah, I mean, imagine right now the four best quarterbacks in the AFC right now, in my mind. Obviously, Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, and I think Cam Newton now. Those are your top four teams in regards to the betting contention. This AFC is going to be loaded for a few years, especially if Cam sticks around New England beyond this year. Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I hope all the best for Cam, and definitely sure he's going to be the guy come week 1 for the Patriots. For anyone wondering, they do play Carolina later on in the season, so he will have a chance to face his old team. They also play the Chiefs. Yes, they do. That's why I'm saying that's going to be a heck of a game. Because, 2 years ago, and when Tom Brady was still there a year ago, it was like, and even 2 years ago when he was more competitive, that was the game, man. It was like Chiefs-Patriots all of a sudden became more of a rivalry than it ever was. Yeah. And he thought this year, Chiefs probably won't have any issue. I'm telling you, it's going to be a lot different with Cam Newton. They're going to have their hands full, but hopefully still able to get it done. Also, what did you think about my question there to Ben? I kind of put him on the spot, and he kind of answered our question with the Super Bowl pick as I hoped he would. It's weird, is it not, to be the team that everyone's actually predicting to repeat as champions? It's just very strange as a longtime Chiefs fan to actually because there have been times where they were like, they maybe a dark horse to maybe make a run in the playoffs, but it's like, I would pick them to win it all. It's like, man, Mahomes magic, man. Well, and it's just that there's been blowback before on people picking Super Bowl picks every single year. It's like, well, what do you mean? This could happen, but it's like the stars are aligning for Kansas City. It already feels like, and even though he's only two years of starting in the league, that and I think that's why you see people making comments like he's the face of the league and stuff like that, is the Chiefs are essentially the Patriots now. They are. We're gonna pick them until they lose or somebody else, and you wouldn't be stupid by picking them. No, nobody would be like, are you serious? Like, why? Yeah, it is now the new possible dynasty. I mean, it really is. We've said that since the beginning of last year. When we come back, the Ivy League has a couple of ideas regarding the upcoming football season that are too interesting not to share. That's next on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
She like my futuristic sounds in the new spaceship. Futuristic if a Philip Cake. She never need a man, she what a man need. So I keep on falling for her daily. We was at Coachella going crazy. Stack a couple M's like I was shady. Now I'm in Tribeca like I'm Jay-Z. Rockin' Sorayama like he pay me. I just signed a new deal with Mercedes.
It's the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. You got Patrick Wheeler, Jason Elmquist hanging out with you on Monday. Is the Ivy League paving the way again, but this time regarding the upcoming football season? It's reported not too long ago by Sports Illustrated, a plan that might be coming to fruition soon for the Ivy League includes 2 options for the upcoming season. Now keep in mind, the Ivy League only plays a 10-game season with no playoffs, so it is a little different than the FCS. The first plan, as reported again by Sports Illustrated. Actually, let's go to the phone lines first, and we'll get to that. You're on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'm sorry ahead of time if you guys have already talked about this, but did you hear the rumor that Seattle is supposedly talking to Antonio Brown?
Yeah, what was it, a few days ago? I think it was last week.
Yeah, I think it was Thursday or Friday. Yeah, we talked about it.
Yeah, we mentioned that being a real possibility all of a sudden.
The thing is, that guy, it 100% it will not work out because he has seriously just lost his mind, and
now
he's not going to get it back. I mean, the guy is just nuts, and I don't know how much of that is blame on the concussions or whatever. So maybe it's not all his fault. I'm not trying to be hateful about it, but but he has no chance.
I'm actually.
Well,
go ahead, Jason.
I think I was just gonna say. I think what I said last week was I think. If you're taking the approach of, you know what, we have so many injuries with our running backs, we're going to kind of abandon the running game. I understand, getting a talent like Antonio Brown to go with Lockett and Metcalf. But if you're not bailing on Penny or Carson yet as running backs, I think there's too much of a risk of disruption in that locker room by bringing Antonio Brown in just for a guy who's just going to be kind of in the mix with a couple of wide receivers that I think are really good options right now anyway.
And I also think I'm actually really surprised by the number of teams that have come out even now and said we still have interest in Antonio Brown. I mean, this truly shows you, I think it's one of those really rare times where talent outweighs a guy's baggage. It doesn't happen very often. But for some teams, I mean, the Raiders, after everything that happened, the Patriots said, let's give it a shot. We heard other teams like the Ravens say, we might give him a chance. Now the Seahawks apparently are very interested. So it really does surprise me that teams even now are still trying to go after him. Even we got to remember, he's not even reinstated back into the league yet.
Yeah. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, yeah. And there's just too many young studs out there now to worry about him. In my opinion, there's so much talent. There's so many young guys, and you're right. With what's going on, they may be expanding those practice squads and stuff so players can get into the, if you have 6 guys go down and you got to replace them, you don't have but a few days to do it. You need guys in the system that that have a playbook or whatever. That you can at least work them in for a few plays or this or that. So I understand it's going to be kind of a weird season and all that plays in, but I don't know. And plus, he's over 30 now, and that's when he walked off the field, he still had the ability. I get it, and it wasn't that long ago, but I just think that he is just completely. I mean, he's just completely off the rails, and there's no chance that he could walk onto the field and stay there for more than a few practices, and then he'd just lose it, and they'd just have to cut him anyway.
And that's what I think most.
I guess it's worth the risk.
Yeah. Oh, and that's the thing. I think that's what a lot of these franchises are looking, the risk reward. Yeah, you're putting a risk of maybe he doesn't play that many games, but if he does play and he's as good as he has been, we're getting kind of like Cam Newton with Patriots right now. You're taking a risk on him, but if that risk hits, you're going to be making some serious bank out of that as a franchise. So I get that, but. For me, it would feel better if or make more sense if it was a franchise like the Titans, who need a star wide receiver type of aspect, not necessarily a Seattle. I would say maybe the 49ers, but I don't think they would want that type of disruption in their locker room right now. But a team that is right on the cusp of maybe even being a Super Bowl contender that needs that superstar wide receiver. And to me, Seattle, I feel like they're good enough at what the wide receiver position. They don't need the potential. To me, the risk is actually greater than the reward for a place like Seattle, where it'd be flipped differently if it was something like Tennessee or something like that in my mind.
Yeah, Seattle is kind of a peculiar place to end up if you're Antonio Brown. I would think with, like you said, with the talent there, but I also do believe that Antonio Brown, he gets into the league, he immerses himself as a top 5 option in the league. I think that's how talented he still is.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. He has a talent, and now when you look at the money that you could get him for, there isn't really that much risk. I don't know what it would be, but I mean, he pretty much is going to have to go for what anybody's going to offer him. He doesn't have, he can't bargain anymore with people because he's beyond that. But no, I don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Like I said, there's just so much young talent, and I agree with what you guys said before your break about Cam Newton. I haven't done my homework here, and maybe y'all can look it up or whatever. You don't have to do it today, but it seemed like the last couple of years when he really was seriously dealing with shoulder and arm issues, that because I pretty much remember him being fairly decent as far as accuracy. He was fairly decent, and the last couple of years it kind of dropped off, and it seemed like it got really bad at the very end. And in my opinion, if he's dealing with shoulder issues, then I mean, he could come back and, after all this time, I'm sure he's healed up and healthy and ready to go. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good option.
Yeah, his arm strength and his decision-making became a little shaky there, but I think a lot of that, too, was he was playing hurt. I mean, a lot of us didn't know it at the time, he did. And that's the thing is with the workouts he's posted and the shape he appears to be in, that as the Patriots right now, that's why they signed him for that little amount of money, saying we're going to take a chance that if it doesn't work out, we won't be 100% shocked like, oh, my gosh, this wasn't supposed to happen. But we do know that the reward, kind of like we just talked about with Antonio Brown, could be too sweet to pass up on.
I will say, I pulled up the stats real quick. 2018, so the last time he played an actual real season, he still only played in 14 games. He actually, that year is when he had a career best 68% completion percentage. He went, he had in 14 games, 67.9%, had over 3,000 yards passing, 24 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. So in 2018, aside from missing a couple games due to injury, he was actually pretty good passing. And if I remember right, in 2018, they didn't have a great selection of wide receivers either. So I think in my mind, his arm strength and accuracy was still there. It was just his body was wearing down from the beating from running.
Yeah, those are good numbers. That's pretty accurate. So yeah, that's fine. I mean, he gets back to that, which at his age and with his ability, he very well could. And there's a chance he could be a really good quarterback this year. And if that happens, then you just better get ready for Kansas City and New England come January.
No doubt. And then I got to give credit. My dad actually texted me between break and said, how bad does the NFL wish that they had scheduled New England and Kansas City now as the opening game of the season? I mean, that would be incredible now.
Yeah. All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Appreciate it. Just going back real quick to that year, that again, Cam Newton had 68% completion percentage. The top wide receiver that year for the Panthers was Christian McCaffrey in his rookie year.
Does that surprise anybody?
867 yards receiving.
Wow.
The next best was DJ Moore, just under 800. So that he was still putting up pretty good numbers considering his best target was Christian McCaffrey, a running back. So again, that might have also helped with the 68% because he was throwing more to a wide open running back out of the backfield. But that also shows, again, the lack of targets that he had in the wide receiver core, but was still able to put up some really good numbers.
I'd love to see how he would be now, though, in a year coming back like this with the Panthers, with DJ Moore becoming as good as he has. Curtis Samuel,
right.
Remember they signed Robbie Anderson in the offseason as well. Yeah. If he can stay healthy, that would be really fun.
Curtis Samuel was on that team that year,
right.
just under 500 yards receiving. Yeah, I mean, that was the thing. They had some guys who ultimately are going to be great wide receivers, but they were just so young and inexperienced that they didn't necessarily weren't the right fit then to be what they needed at wide receiver. Again, you also had Greg Olsen that year, but he had a shortened season. He only played 9 games that year. So I mean, they were, all things considered, that was a pretty impressive numbers from Cam Newton, but everyone's going to look at that year they went 7-9. Again, I think with him it was 6-8 before he missed the last 2 games due to injury.
That's why whenever he officially wasn't a Panther anymore, I was pretty bummed just for being a Cam Newton fan because of the weapons that were emerging, not to mention Christian McCaffrey in the backfield, who, my goodness, is easily top 1-2 running back in the league right now, and then that would have helped out a ton this upcoming season for Cam, I believe, as well. But yeah, he's got a better chance of succeeding than Antonio Brown does, I think, this season, back to that caller's original point, because that's going to take some time and effort to get AB back in the league. Would I be completely surprised based on what the NFL has done in the past with players like this? No. But how long could he sustain himself in the league without causing trouble remains to be seen.
And that begs a question. If you were a coach or a GM and you were looking at strengthening up your wide receiver position, and money is pretty much the same, would you rather take a Antonio Brown or a Josh Gordon if he's reinstated?
Probably Antonio Brown. I mean, I think Josh Gordon, he probably has, I know this is going to sound crazy because he's been out of the league like 5 times, but he probably has a better chance of a full season than Antonio Brown. But that's kind of the thing, is like the Patriots did with one game. At least Antonio Brown didn't have a huge game, but he had a ton of targets, scored a touchdown, and they won the game. I mean, that's the difference that he can make. Is I think I would still go with AB. I don't know how, and this is what I would do. I don't know how effective it would be, but I would be sitting him down and be like, look, this is your last shot. Like, you've heard that before, but we're not playing. We've done this before. We've seen this before with you. Yeah. We're giving you a real opportunity. Look who our quarterback is, maybe, and all that. And you have a real shot to resurrect your career right now, but it all depends on you, how you act off the field, which we all know is ever-changing.
And see, that's why I would actually hedge my bets and go with Josh Gordon, because the thing we got to keep in mind with Josh Gordon is what got him out of the league is actually
legal
no longer.
Now. Yeah.
It's legal now. Yeah. It's like, okay, he smoked a little too much weed, but it's become a almost commonplace in a lot of states now. It's still technically against federal, but I mean, so many states now are either recreational or marijuana or medicinal purposes and stuff like that. So for me, I would almost rather Josh Gordon, because his isn't necessarily a locker room cancer or a head case. It's just he likes to take the edge off here and there. And, when you're smashing helmets the way you are, sometimes that's needed.
Oh yeah, we've heard stories of players plenty in the past. So
ask Ricky Williams.
Yeah. Players that we were smoked in at halftime or before the game. I never played a game sober, that type of thing. Yeah. So yeah, there's definitely reward in Josh Gordon too. And it's just that talent-wise, I think it still goes to Antonio Brown. That's why you have to take that chance if you are in need of a receiver. But like you said, I don't see a huge need in Seattle with DK Metcalf emerging as a stud and Tyler Lockett on the other side. I mean, really, where's the need for Antonio Brown in that offense? I'm sure you could find a fit for him anywhere, but that doesn't really seem to make sense.
The one place I'm surprised I haven't heard him attached to that would make sense for talent, but would also make sense of they would be willing to take a head case.
Who's that?
Washington Redskins.
Yeah, they've done it before.
They're so dysfunctional that I'm surprised that they haven't gone after him, because again, if you want to help a young quarterback grow like Haskins, you bring in someone like Antonio Brown who you think again will be great on the field, and I think it could create a great thing, but maybe they're actually looking at it and saying, yeah, he could also derail in the locker room what we're trying to get out of Haskins.
That's the risk. I mean, but we do know that Antonio Brown is probably not going to be, at least I hope, probably not too picky with any team that would say come over here. I mean, he did go for the Raiders, for crying out loud, knowing Derek Carr was going to be his quarterback, and obviously that was probably not going to pan out, as we saw.
Well, technically he was traded to them.
Well, that's true. That's
true. He didn't
have
a choice.
Yeah, he didn't have a choice. I guess he technically could have said, I'm not playing for you guys. But yeah, we saw what all happened in the Hard Knocks episodes. It wasn't really gelling anyways with him and that team. So yeah, you have to think that even with a bad team, he might try to cop on and say, I can make you great, but that's going to be the risk. And again, we have to remember he isn't even reinstated back in the league yet. So whenever Roger Goodell decides to finish that investigation that's apparently still going on, and maybe he gets back in a chance, we'll see. But if he goes to a good team, like an automatic Super Bowl contender pretty much every year, like Seattle, and I think you have some serious case for, wow, this could be Antonio Brown 2.0. That is, if he can remain in the league for more than a couple games before someone else releases a sexual harassment case on him or anything like that. So when we come back, we'll talk more about the Ivy League situation that we're trying to get into there in that last break, because both of their new options for what they believe will result in a football season of some sort are pretty interesting. We'll talk about that to round out the show next here on the Afternoon Sports Drive.
Levitating off the blacktop. Used to struggle getting started, now I can't stop. Used to be the quiet kid in the sandbox, now it's hands up every time that your man rocks.
Wrapping up the Afternoon Sports Drive here on the Triple Play Sports Radio Network. Patrick Wheeler and Jason Elmquist here with you on Monday as we begin the week. I like to call it the week of July 4th, because it basically is here. And we are, That's the issue, though, Jason, is that so many things are canceled and all this with the coronavirus and on July 4th. And I don't know about you, but I was hoping at one point that we might actually have baseball on the 4th, too, which seems like obviously that was a well wish at one point, but obviously not going to happen.
Yeah, I only know one thing for certain that has not been canceled, and that's my birthday.
Yeah, so
that still will happen on Saturday, 4th of July.
I don't know. We might cancel it this week. I mean, we had to put like an official statement out there.
That's why I'm leaving Oklahoma and going back to Kansas.
Oh, okay, so we can cancel it here.
Yeah. No cancel culture in Stillwater this weekend. I'm heading back north.
Oh, cancel culture's coming for Jason's birthday. You heard it here. That's really unfortunate if that were the case. Yeah, he's going to have a good time back in Kansas for the birthday. What are you allowed to announce your age here? What you're going to be?
Oh, I got to remember. What's 2020, 36.
36. Yep. That's a good one right there. Solid birthday weekend coming up for Jason. Hopefully you can at least do some stuff that you enjoy, right? At least even now.
Yeah. Well, I'm planning on spending some times with the nephews who I haven't seen. At least 6 or 7 months. I don't think I was actually able to get back for Christmas because the weekend we were planning on going up, we had a snowstorm throughout the Midwest, and then obviously the pandemic has kind of hunkered everyone down. So, and then some friends that I haven't seen for a couple years. So no, I'm still gonna be doing social distancing, but definitely gonna be catching up with some people that I haven't gotten to see in a while.
There you go. That's all you can ask for. Let's get into this Ivy League thing real quick before we hop off the air. This is interesting. It's not like this crazy new idea, but what's interesting about it is that the Ivy League is moving forward. It looks like with one of two plans here as a restart, one of two options in the plan to restart. One would be for their football season to open the season in late September with a 7-game schedule, which is only conference opponents. That one's been floated around a bunch amongst Power Fives before. And then this one, the second plan, is shutting down football until next spring. Their startup for practice would be in March, and then a 7-game conference-only schedule beginning in April and concluding in mid-May. One of those two options is reportedly supposed to be adopted by the Ivy League in the next couple of weeks. Then, as we said, they can get away with some of this because they only play a 10-game schedule anyways. I think that, but when they talk about that first one in late September with the 7-game schedule starting, at this point, wouldn't it make more sense, though, to go as early as possible? So if you're doing practices as normal, wouldn't you want to start around early September?
Yeah, my assumption is that they're starting later because maybe they don't think that they're going to be able to start practices on time. Would be my assumption, because again, I keep pointing it out to people just to hammer it home. NCAA has put in place you have to practice 4 weeks before your season starts, and if they think that delaying the start of practices maybe is something that they're going to have to do, maybe that's why they're thinking starting the season in late September instead of thinking that they can start at the beginning of September when they're not even going to have every one of their teams practicing yet.
And in the second plan we talked about with the first plan, I should say, with that 7-game schedule, when you take off those 3 non-conference games, you can end the season the week before Thanksgiving, which, as we know, some schools around the country are already planning on doing. So, I mean, I can see it from that standpoint in terms of we were trying to get out of here before we would have people come back, for instance, and would have a better chance at cases spreading around. But I don't know. I mean, maybe they can get away with this idea to actually becoming a real thing because they're sitting there in the FCS and they have a little different schedule anyways than a lot of other schools. But are you surprised to see the Ivy League? I mean, we have to remember, too, they are the conference that was first to cancel their postseason tournament in basketball as well.
Exactly. We got to keep in mind that most of our future leaders are Ivy Leaguers. So I'm not surprised that they have kind of led the charge in this even as well. So no, I'm not surprised to hear that the Ivy League actually is smart enough to come up with a comprehensive plan of what to do with this football season. That does not surprise me at all.
Yeah, it really doesn't me either. And then again, in a couple of weeks, they hope to have a plan set in place. It'll be breaking news, if they decide to wait until next year to launch it back up again.
Yeah, especially because I shared with you, we've already heard of another football game specifically that's already been canceled. They've already canceled Dayton at I think it was
SEMO,
it's Southeast Missouri, because of COVID concerns.
Yeah, that's a bummer.
From reading the story, they're not canceling the seasons. They're just deciding that game specifically they will not play.
That's a tough one. I mean, SEMO is a very rich football school. I know that and again, there was some money to be made there. I know that they really love their home openers just like anywhere else too, and then in schools like that. So I hate that for them. But are we going to hear more of that? Probably. I mean, to be honest, it's probably not going to be the only one we hear of. There might have been some more even that are smaller. I know that we've talked about a couple of small schools in Division II, Division III that have already canceled their entire season. So it hasn't come to that point yet, but they did go ahead, like you said, and get rid of that opening game. Before we get off here, a reminder that, well, actually two things. There is live baseball going to take place tonight, by the way, as the Texas Collegiate League opens up here in Tulsa. Tom Holliday's team, the Tulsa Drillers there with a few Oklahoma State players, will be opening up tonight. As I'm interested, I think what I'm going to do is end up going Thursday night to their game in Tulsa and see how that goes. Because I've read about it. They're obviously allowing fans, but you have to be, social distance, only sitting with people from your family, and all of that as well. But it is live baseball, so that's something that you can keep up with as well. And then again tonight at 8 o'clock, the premiere of Eddie on ESPN. Do not forget. I know we have hit that home today. Then make sure do not forget that date. I also just got confirmation from Tom Dorado that he will join us tomorrow in the 4 o'clock hour to discuss the film, and as well as Scott Sutton will join us later on in that hour also, so we can get plenty of his reaction. Two guys that are a part of the film, obviously. That honestly, Jason, might be our last show with Tom Dorado before he takes off to Hollywood, since he's going to be aired on ESPN.
Yeah, the good thing is there's a pandemic, so Hollywood's closed right now. So he's
that isn't going to stop Tom Dorado. It's not going to stop him. He'll find a way.
Well, but we know we don't have to worry about him suddenly going on Twitter or YouTube. I mean, he's not going to be a virtual. Heck, there could be so many tweets tonight about him that he would never know.
He would never know.
We could literally make up whatever we want tomorrow.
What I'm going to
hey, did you see? There's a unanimous decision on Twitter that that gray-haired guy in the Eddie show, they say needs a Twitter presence.
You know what? I'm going to hop on Twitter and be that guy. I know that guy. I've worked with that guy before. Be that guy and see what happens. Yeah, so again, tonight, 8 o'clock, that is in 3 hours. Make sure you are around your TVs or have it set to record, as it will be available on ESPN. The film Eddie premieres. I know everyone is pumped up to see that. It's going to do it for us here on the Afternoon Sports Drive. Big thank you to Ben Fischer joining in hour number 1 from the Sports Business Journal. Thanks to Jason Elmquist. As always, I'm Patrick Wheeler.